welcome back to a series of interviews with experts. And my name is Doreen, and today I have a special guest, a broker, an investor, an owner of AA Real Estate Group, one of the most successful real estate firm in Massachusetts. I believe also a mentor to many others, and probably inspired more than a couple of hundred people, especially with the meetups and with all the work that person does. And also, I believe you've done over 100 deals in the last 5 years, which is amazing. So let me welcome Nick Aalerud to our session today.
Well, thanks, Serena.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate joining.
Oh, thanks for having me. And I mean, for the record, it's been 200 deals. For the record, just
I apologize.
Ego is of no issue, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's fine. Cool.
So yes, I know you are a figure that inspires a lot of people, young professionals, whoever is getting started, and for some that are looking for a better way of doing deals. Or I also know that you have created complete deal flow systems, and you have over 70 mentees and students of your own that you train. So this is incredible. I'm happy to be here with you. So I guess to begin, what is your story? What is your story?
It's funny because, Doreen, when you first sent me these questions, I'm used to the business questions, and it's very rare to get questions that make you kind of look back inside yourself and remember why you're in this to begin with. So I really appreciate you making me go back and rethink a lot of things as well. So that's awesome. My story. Well, there's the short version and the long version. We'll do the short version.
Are you guys ready for a long one? I am.
Oh, no. I know. Most people have probably heard it. So I graduated school with a politics degree. I realized that I really didn't have a future in politics, that I really could get a job. So I, at that point, was lucky enough to start working for two different banks. I worked for Federal Home Loan Bank in Boston, which taught me a lot about the government banking side. And then I was lucky enough to get a job at Mellon Financial, now Bank of New York Mellon in Boston and Everett. So that taught me everything about the bond, stocks, and mutual funds industry. So that was really, really cool. And long story short, 80-hour work weeks. They promoted me like 2 or 3 times. I got to go to India for a few months and train an Indian team. It was awesome, but working holidays, working weekends, and being still not making more than $50,000 a year. It was really getting to me. So I realized that real estate was one of my way out. And I only knew that because I saw an infomercial at 2:30 in the morning on a Friday night. It was John Beck's tax lien system, free and clear system. I think he's in jail now, but I don't know for sure. So I don't know. But anyway, it was a good program. It gave me a lot of basics. It was $49. And at the bottom of that infomercial, it actually said, if you're serious about real estate investing, call this 800 number. So I'm like, I guess I'm serious.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was like, I called the number. And the best salesman in the world talked me into my first $6,000 over the phone coaching boot camp. Some guy, I think it was North Carolina, every week on a Monday night, he'd call in and we'd talk about what a motivated seller was and how to pull leads and how to do this and that. I learned a lot from that coaching, but I didn't really do much. I got off the ground, but one of my homework assignments, he got me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I know you've read. Yeah, of course you have. Of course. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Changed my world, right? Changed your world?
Yes.
Short, right. Long and short of it. I read that book, and everything I had learned in the financial world at that point really had been turned backwards. So I knew at that point, businesses, real estate, collecting the assets was the way to go. And I started at that point, I started investing into courses for myself, more courses, more classes, found out that it's a very, very expensive world when you start buying guru course here and this one here, and you're in $6,000 here and $5,000 and $10,000 and $45,000 for a Rich Dad University. And I was mad at myself because all through this whole time I wasn't doing a deal. And it was frustrating.
That sounds familiar.
It sounds really a lot of me, everybody, right? And this is back in 2005. So at that time, which is the same time I joined my first RIA, which was Chelmsford RIA, then called the New England RIA in Lowell with Annie Trelawnek, I was frustrated. I all of a sudden had a shampoo bottle. You've heard this story before, but I'll tell it for your viewers.
Please. That's an amazing story, actually.
I needed something to hold me accountable to get my first deal done, and I was really angry that I hadn't done a deal and now I'm spending all this money on these courses. I didn't have a person, I didn't have a mentor yet. So I had a shampoo bottle in the shower. So I had lots more hair back then. And the shampoo bottle, which was a Suave men's shampoo bottle, I just remember it, like, I needed, okay, by the time that's empty, I'm going to have my first deal done. My first deal, at least one. Even if I break even on this deal, I want to have one deal done. So every morning, it was a constant reminder for me. Oh, a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less. And finally, towards the bottom, I'm not going to lie, I was getting desperate. And it seems like the stars had aligned. I had another investor colleague who I didn't really know reach out to me from Minnesota. And he said, you know, Nick, it seems like you're trying to get into real estate. Listen, I have these 5 deals like ready for you. He had like 8 or 9 deals ready for you, but we he's like, here's the deal. We're gonna make money at the closings, because back then you could make money at the closings and get cash back. You can't do that these days. That's frowned upon. We'd make money on the tenant side. The tenants would pay above market rent because they had shaky credit, so they would come in as a tenant. Lease option is what the strategy was. Now I know what it's called. I didn't know back then. Lease option tenant, rent-to-own people would pay a little bit above market rent. We'd make money for 3 years, and then on the 3rd year, we would cash out and make 20% above what we paid for it on the resale. So this was awesome. So it was great because this guy was going to give us this opportunity to make money at the closings, to get above market rent on these properties, and then make money. We were going to sell for 20% above what we paid for it on the other side. And it was this great opportunity. And of course, my shampoo bottle was getting down there, right? So I didn't buy one. I decided to buy 5 of those in 1 week. And I, all of a sudden, based on all this cash from the closings, I now had money to kind of pay off all these seminars that I'd been charging up. And I was like, I made money for the first time in real estate ever. This is awesome, right? And it was so awesome. We and a colleague of mine, TJ, who works with me now, we had a call with him scheduled on Monday for next steps and getting the tenants together and putting it there. And regardless of the circumstances involved in all of this, well, he never showed up on the call. And then, as it would turn out later, at least my thought process went to, there were no tenants, there were no contracts to sell. I felt like there was forging going on. I felt like there was all this stuff. He took his share of the money from those closings, and he left with it. So I was now left in real estate. I had these 5 deals. I had all this cash. I paid attorneys now to chase him. I was paying property managers to try to manage these properties out there. And each one of these properties was like $500,000. Wow. So you can't pay those mortgages for a lot longer when you don't have any income from it. So therefore, I ended up 4 months later running out of money, and I lost all 5 homes. I lost 4 to short sale, 1 to foreclosure. The worst part was I didn't even know what a short sale was back then. So at the time, I was my own motivated seller, so I was basically signing anything they put in front of me. Like, just take this off of my lap. Like, my phone was ringing. This is a true stat. Every 38 seconds, because I have 10 loans, my phone would be ringing. So I had to, like, literally, I hated my phone. I was fearful of it every single day. I was working at the bank still. So every time my phone would go up 38 seconds, I just had to shut it off, put it in a drawer. I was fearful of it. I hated it. I couldn't even bear to use it. Even going back here now, it's like causing me lots of stress. But
getting hot here.
I get a little warm. But worst part was not just the collections calls, not the hit to my pride or my ego. Then, as I turned out, with the things I was signing to get these properties off my plate, I was signing over $400,000 in promissory notes, in judgments, and executions. that I would have to pay back.
Great story.
These are my first 5 deals in real estate. I mean, this was not what I expected.
Cannot get any better.
Yeah, this is pretty bad. So I should have filed bankruptcy. I did not file bankruptcy. I decided that it was my responsibilities. I had signed up for this, and I just had to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I mean, long story short, I mean, we'll get there. In 2010, I ended up paying all that back from a credit report, which was nice. But before we got there, I now had my head in the sand, right? So you asked me in our take 1 of this video, which we shouldn't reference. I'm just kidding. But you had asked, what do I do after that? So what I had done after that was I stuck my head in the sand for 5 months because that really, really sucked. And I'm still at the bank, thank goodness, but I'm still at the bank. So I'm still working 60, 78 hours a week. I'm still working holidays. Is this still what I want to do? I had to re-ask myself, what's this? What's my new why? Like, that sucked, right? I don't want to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still here. I'm still in my bank mode, so I don't really know what I want to do. And I just remember I had still paid the money for, who's one of my mentors? That was one of the questions you were going to ask today. I had paid the money already to go to the seminar. I hadn't gone yet. One of my mentors became Marshall Silver, who's a hypnotist. And he's a motivational hypnotist as well as an entertainment hypnotist. And I took his class, The Turning Point, in 2005 or 6 at this point. And literally, it was everything I needed to sort of turn things back around and on me, right? So what happened in Minnesota? That wasn't this man taking advantage of me. That wasn't these 5 deals that went terribly wrong and, oh, woe is me. Like, this was my fault. Like, he got me to say, like, my fault, my decisions, I didn't know enough. I bought 5 deals sight unseen. One of them, I was a first-time home buyer, so I didn't really know what a closing was. I didn't know any of that stuff. I was still I was a big shot real estate investor, right? But he got me to turn this all around and realize it was my fault. And I think that skill in itself took me so far in being an entrepreneur and being a business owner. Like, okay, everything that happens now going forward, it's my fault. Whether I can succeed and you know, appreciate everything, or if something goes wrong, I made a decision. What do I learn from it? And that's what I did. For about 5 months, I took time to rest and reevaluate. I found, what's my why? Do I still want to be here at this bank? What am I supposed to be doing? What would make me happy in life? And then finally, I was like, real estate's still my way out. I really felt that real estate was here. So I began wholesaling in Somerville and Cambridge. I started going to RIAs. I went back to Chelmsford again with Annie Trolanek, and I found one buyer that was buying condo conversions in Somerville and Cambridge. And he was flipping them, and he had his rules. So I was like, oh, all right. So I learned kind of what his rules were, and nights and weekends, I would go out and door knock, be a lot of tenants, right? And they would try to point me to the owner, and I would cold call owners, say, hey, I have this buyer, are you interested in this and that? And I started making money on contract assignments. Mm-hmm. And that was how I began very slowly working the grind, right? Doing the phone calls, doing this and that, and getting my phone out was the worst part. Like, taking my phone back out of the drawer, and I still remember it to this day, where it was. I can picture it, like taking it out, hitting the power button on, knowing that as soon as it turned on, it was going to start ringing again, like collections. And I just didn't want that whole life, I wanted that whole life over with. But it didn't. But I then had to learn to use my phone to try to generate income and be my way out of my situation. So I did my first deal. I finally, about 6 or 7 deals later, got all these assignment fees, got my first chunk of money that I used for a down payment with a hard money lender for a Somerville project. And I did not make money on the project. I broke even.
Shocker.
But that was the biggest win I could have ever had, right? Because it was my first deal that was not out of state, that wasn't me relying on other people. Like, I did that. And I learned everything about rehab and construction and analysis and real numbers, and got my Excel sheets all refined. And I had to set rules for myself, and that was where we were going with that investor. I had to become a banker almost in real estate. If it meets this set of criteria, you buy the property. If it does not, you cannot buy the property.
And it became that black and white to me. There was no middle ground because I couldn't afford to lose any money. I had no money to lose, and I couldn't go into more debt. I couldn't. My credit was shot. So all of that put together made my business very straightforward. If it meets this criteria, I'll buy it. If it doesn't, I won't. And I'm going to spend my nights and weekends calling these sellers, kind of trying to get these deals together. And then all of this, I'm going to start putting up procedures. And I stand. All of that said, you know, X amount of years later, that was my first project in Somerville. We've done over 200 projects, and we've only lost money on, I'd say, 6 of them.
Wow, that's impressive.
So, yeah.
That's a good ratio.
We're pretty excited, but because of those rules that we set in place, you know?
But there's also that button, rock button that you had to hit. And I guess I do have a question. For some investors or for people who are just about to make their first deal, they find excuses why they can't make the phone call, they're scared, they don't have time, they don't have a full-time job, despite the fact that you had 80 hours a week. Some people just have 40 and they still have boundaries that prevent them from making the first deal. Perhaps hitting the rock button is a solution for some people. It's like awakening, like, okay, if you can get there that low, you only have one way out, and you can jump really high. And maybe for you, if you wouldn't lose that so much, you wouldn't be that successful. Is that true? Or, people not necessarily need to lose in order to become successful, but something needs to happen for people to get to that tipping point and get there, overcome that barrier of not having something by having something.
That's a good question too. I don't think that people necessarily need to hit rock bottom to be successful in real estate. I do feel that hitting rock bottom, I do believe it's a skill that one builds. So if you hit rock bottom, and you come back from it, your worst fear has happened, right? So you've already experienced your worst fear and you come back from that. So I feel like that skill, whether you're in real estate or in business or fruit arrangements or whatever you're in, I feel like that skill can always be mastered. And it does give me a little bit of a sense of security these days. So if I have a really, really bad day, or if I'm having a bad conversation with the seller, or if it can't be worse than what it was 10 years ago, right? And then, of course, if there's another disaster, which there was, I've had 3 kind of almost lose everything scenarios in my business. And I think every real estate investor or business owner might go through these things. But the other 2 times, it's like, oh my God, can it get any worse?
Oh, I've heard that someone said, actually on the Bigger Pockets, that sooner or later we'll know what can happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
It could happen, and it will happen. It's just sooner or later, so we all have to be prepared for it. You will hit the rock, and shit hits the fan. I would say. Yes, and I think there are certain sacrifices we go through life by achieving or getting closer to our dreams. We gain strength, we gain accountability, we get to the right mindset as long as we surround ourselves with the right people, and we get in connection with ourselves, get into the roots of the problem versus trying to change the fruits. So what are the sacrifices besides that unimaginable loss that you've been through with real estate? Is there anything else that really put you through a challenge and made you the person that you are right now?
That's a good point. I'm going to address the first thing you said though too. You mentioned that there's lots of other people going through, losing rock bottom. I feel like one of my main focuses right now in my own business world and life is to surround yourself with people that challenge you, that take you out of your comfort zone, that are better than you, and literally that's kind of who I surround myself with. So to get to the first part of what you just said, one example, I was meeting with a gentleman that I don't really recruit for the brokerage, as you know, our real estate sales agency. I want certain people around me. And this particular gentleman had everything. He had Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises, and he had, he was at the top of the moon. He was a very successful politician in a local town, and he lost everything almost all at once. The fire here, and a family member died over here, and a divorce over here. He lost everything in like 6 months, and he came all the way back from that. Those are the people. When you mentioned like I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's so important. Where if I have no other purpose right now, but to better myself every day, I want to surround myself with those types of people. Now you mentioned sacrifice, and I knew that was one of your questions, and I really had to think on that before you got here today. And this is a very personal. This is a personal response. My biggest sacrifice, I truly feel, was my first wife for real estate. She was my high school sweetheart, I guess you could say. We were together for a whole bunch of years, and we went to college and parted ways, and we became adults, and we get back together as adults. And she was even with me in real estate for about a year and a half or so. And essentially, we got back together, we got married, and even though she knew what the business was, she didn't want me. I was out every night. I mean, RIAs, meetup events, surrounding myself with like-minded people, motivating me. I was in that world, and you can't really take that world away. So she, at one point, I think it was just an expectations change where she, wanted. She had a different vision in her mind as to what the marriage should be, and I feel like my commitment to my business, or my commitment to real estate, or my commitment to my why conflicted with her vision of what the marriage was supposed to be. So I do feel like one of my biggest sacrifices has been my first wife for real estate. And do I look back and regret it? I mean, I can't regret anything, right? I mean, not because I'm in a different place now. Where I am right now has been the culmination of every single event that's ever happened, good and bad.
Yeah, you would reflect on the past, but you would not regret about anything because that's what made you a person, and you open up so many more opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise had. I think it's just a reflection, like we can learn something valuable, take a lesson, move ahead, better yourself every day, wake up in the morning, do your morning rituals if you have any, and then just enjoy, and do not go to bed until you understand, okay, you know what, today I mastered a little bit better, that skill, or I found out a new fact, or I read an article and that made me think. So thinking is living, and living is improvement. The definition of life is expressions and growth. So you have to, if you want to live, you gotta grow. If you don't grow, you're you're stuck. We talked about
that was deep. Yeah.
We talked about the comfort zone. We talked about the status quo in the past, where you just good where you are. Why are we here? Why are we here if we're just good and happy, watch TV, and not make a difference? That's important to realize. And in real estate, you can only grow if you can be a better person every day, inspire people around you to do things that inspire them, because you need the team to grow. So it all becomes a big cycle. But again,
I love that. Yeah, you just nailed that. I mean, you're right. We did talk about that before. I mean, every single day you're in that comfort zone. You're here. You're in the content place, right? That's what we're talking about. Right. I mean,
you're not happy.
But you don't know that, right? People don't know they're not happy here. They feel content. They like, I hate to put it on this, they like going to their corporate job. They like the security and stability of that. They like coming home and knowing that, they can make dinner and they can watch Netflix and they can go to bed. Like, they like that. And if they like that, or they're not upset by it, they don't feel pain by that, right? They're going to keep doing it. So I guess we talked about earlier in our initial conversation, like, what is the purpose of human life and human nature, which is too deep for that, and that will require a gin and tonic, not just a wine. But, I feel like you're right. Every single day, you go home, you evaluate yourself. Did I better myself today? Did I achieve something? Am I still in a comfort zone right now? And I feel like if I have nothing else to prove to anybody, I want to prove it to myself. Like if I can better myself every day, if I feel content in any way, if I feel it in one day, I have to do something different tomorrow. If I'm content for a while at a certain level in my business, let's say I don't see it for weeks at a time, the moment you recognize it, it's like you got to make a plan to try to, what's that next thing? I'm going to drop my content, grab onto this vine, and try to reach up here. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you don't. But either way, I feel like that's being human. I feel like I need to surround myself with people who want to do that.
That's awesome. And I probably will incorporate some sort of fear. But a friend of mine once said, if you start thinking big, you stop worrying about the little things. Mm-hmm. And it's true. And we have to do something that scares the heck out of us every day in order to grow those important phone calls, make them before 10 a.m. Then you can pass them and enjoy the rest of your day and do something different.
Swallow That Frog, right? That's one of those books.
You got to do it in the morning before you get to your other things, because it's going to sit in your back. Oh my gosh, I have to make this call and I'm not really comfortable, and what if I fail? That's fine. Just do it and get over it.
And it affects everything else you have to do that day. Like you said, it's always in the back, so maybe you're not doing this seller conversation the way you wanted to do, so you get over. I agree. Yeah. When do you set your priorities? Do you do night before or do you do morning of, typically?
The night before.
Night before?
Because in the morning I wake up, I have a notepad next to my bed, and I write things down the night before. In the morning, there could be random thoughts, note-taking, an idea, I write them down, I have vision board, I look at it, I do affirmation. You probably do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So it's important that way you energize yourself, and you don't look out of your house with the wrong mindset, because it will affect the entire day. So now you make sure you're in the right mood, you like yourself, and you go get it. Mm-hmm. And things happen. You make you receive a phone call and you say your boiler is broken, but because you're thinking bigger, this shouldn't affect your common mood.
Yes.
Maybe your roof needs to be replaced. Like my friend just texted me yesterday. That's okay. You were thinking bigger, so this is something little. If you think small, that all things will affect you. Two of my other mentors, since we're on that topic, right? Well, Tony Robbins, although I've had a weird relationship with him live, which was the Boston event where he didn't go on until super late. Everyone thought it was his event. I've been there.
Yeah, that's right. We won't talk about that because that was weird to me. But on paper, when he wrote his books, he talks about the urgent and important, and you can't live in urgent and important, because if you live in urgent and important, you can't ever focus on the long term, the growth, the overview. And so he talks about that. So like a roof or a boiler going out, that's a tough place to live because you're reactionary, right? You have to deal with this right now, right? Or else someone else is going to suffer for you not acting on this right now. That's frustrating. Another one of my mentors is Tim Ferriss, and you mentioned the routines. And I'm a huge fan of routines because I strive every day to come out of routines and to get into comfort zones, but that means we still, as humans, need to grasp something every day. And one of his routines, he has a great blog where he talks about his 5 things he tries to do every morning before he gets into work mode, right? And a few of those things, he says if he can hit 3 of those 5 every single morning, he's won the day already. His whole mindset changes because he's now mastered his morning. And one of those is so simple. It's making the bed.
I know. I was just gonna say, at least you come home to something. Right. The bed is made.
The bed is made. I've done 1 out of those 5 things. That means I have control over this aspect of my life. And it's almost absurd, but it's so true. We as humans need some sort of control if we're the person that always tries to reach for excellence. And I don't know. I like Tim Ferriss is another one of my mentors, since you mentioned. Oh.
Do you go to a lot of seminars? Real estate training now. I know we've done gurus, and it still helped us, even though we were in debt. We are still doing, because at some point we went to see them and bought their courses. But right now, do you continue your education? Do you travel to conferences? How much are you involved in that stage? Once a year, twice a year? Does that excite you, or you what? I'll do something local.
That's a good question too. I have a budget now for education.
Oh.
So it's like you have to allocate, all right, well, if we have, I'm not paying $45,000 for a mentorship in residential real estate, where now we sort of we have most of our shit together at this point, right? But I just bought, myself and Rob went to a commercial real estate seminar this past summer.
Mm-hmm.
So does it excite me? I guess it depends. I feel like once you get to a point in residential real estate, when you've learned these strategies, you've learned reverse wholesaling and lease option wholesaling, and it becomes, okay, what's the paperwork and what do I need to try to get into my head? Once I get the basic core principles down, I can put my own seller script together. Like, I know how to do that now. So it's kind of funny when I when I see like a Facebook ad come out, like, oh, new strategy, never heard before, listen to this webinar for 60 minutes, and then we'll, buy his course. Like, I'm like, all right, what is the title of what he's doing? Oh, reverse wholesaling. Yep, I just figured that out. Okay, now I get to this. But it depends, like commercial, I feel like education is super important. And not only education, I do feel like the live interaction with people is super important. So I do get excited about networking and meeting people that get excited about certain things too. As long as you always have, I'm trying to think of the phrase, and that's not coming to me. It will in a moment. But as long as you have the grain of salt, I guess you'd say, this is, a lot of people are there to sell you something. A lot of people do have full value to add. And once you learn to know the difference, then I get excited about going somewhere. If I feel like there's going to be super value there, or people of value will be in the room that I can then connect with.
Do you ever feel that something is calling for you to share and give lots of value to other people and get them together and make sure, it's something inside you that you definitely want to guide someone to find their why, to dream, and make sure that they are inspired, because they may share your beliefs, so they go ahead and do their own thing, but because you share with them, do you feel like you need to share that values right inside you, like you have to do that?
Not have to, but that's a passion.
It's a passion,
yeah.
You love to teach.
I like to teach when there's a point behind it, right? Like, I'm not passionate about teaching people about real estate and how to make money. I'm passionate about getting them to find their why, to get out from their situation and understand, this is just, real estate to me, even now, is a means to make money. Now, there's side passions in there. The moment we can help a seller out, and we literally, whether we buy the house or not, if we help a seller so much that they send us an email and tell us how thankful they are, or they send me a text, or they send me a video of them in their new home that we helped them find, and they're like, oh, you guys helped me, we thought all of you were scam artists, and that's when the business is worth it. But then the whole point of this is to make money too. Tim Ferriss calls them muses, right?
Yeah, money is a result, not the cause of your action.
Right. So this is all you asked, one of the questions on the paper was why. So my why has changed. My why initially, which is still a very big passion of mine, obviously financial independence is first and foremost, right? I want to be able to not be held accountable to anybody except myself. So financial independence was one. My passions were traveling, really, really, really good food and alcohol. That was before, obviously, had kids, right? But those are still my passions. Traveling, really, really, really good food and alcohol. Anthony Bourdain has my dream job. Anthony, if you're watching this, hook me up. Hook a brother up, man. Let me come with you to the next one you go to. But anyway, besides that.
I'll have lunch with you.
Yeah, see? She'll have lunch with you. She knows. So, but that was still my first passion. It still will always be my passion. Now a secondary passion is, obviously I'm here to take care of my kids and not give them money, not be able to give them opportunities and experiences they wouldn't normally have, and then give them the tools that they now need to forge their own future. They might not have hit rock bottom yet, but I want them to know, you can work for a living, or you can, work for yourself for a living. And there are different pros and cons of both. Maybe you're this type of person, maybe you're this type of person, but I want to be able to give them all that knowledge so they can make that decision.
Awesome.
That's my new passion.
Well, that's been great conversation. I did have other questions, but I can probably ask you later on because I really want to dig into your systems, but
Is that a part 3? We'll do a part
Day
2/3, day 3. I like it.
No, I know that system is a tipping point for you to scale. So I know you have your own system you have created. But I guess I ask you one question.
Sure.
Who was your first team member? Was it the virtual assistant? Was it that investor you met at Chelmsford RIA? Or who was that first person that was a tipping point? You know what? We are buddies. We're a team now. Now look, we have a flow of deals. It's not me struggling looking for one deal after I'm done with my first one, the second, the third. Was that someone that really impacted and created that team environment?
Interesting. You asked 2 questions. So the first one is yes, the person that first helped me out of my mindset, besides being Marshall Silver and then that buyer Somerville Cambridge guy, he helped me make money. He wasn't a team member. I think my first team member would be Miss Julia Walsh. Julia worked for my ex-wife when she was in real estate with me, before we got married. She found her on Craigslist as a marketing assistant, and I guess they had met at Barnes & Noble, and she was helping her stuff envelopes and this and that. I didn't have anything to do with her. They were just operating underneath my company at the time. And then the time came where, my ex-wife was going to kind of stop what she was doing in the business, but she didn't want to leave Julia without a job. So she was going to have her termination / exit interview / spring me on her in the same meeting at a Barnes & Noble in Salem. So a lot of you maybe watching this might know Julia. She's awesome. She and I were together for about 6 years. She became first a marketing assistant, I guess you'd say. Then she started doing lots of random things to sort of help with brand marketing and help with this and that. And then she became the acquisitions person in the office, and she had a huge role. She was the first, I would say, that made me call the business a team and have a system, because I couldn't have done what I could do without her.
And you just felt that she's the right person, or it took some time?
I think we both sort of fell in each other's laps. I don't think either of us really thought much of it. I mean, it was what it was. It was a natural entry, and then for her, it was a natural exit too. Now she's very happy doing something else, and we're pretty happy with our growth here too. So I think people will come in and out of your life, right, in different times.
And just grab them.
And you grab them, and then when there's a natural parting, that's okay too.
I think those people will probably just share what you believe in. If you believe in something that they can bite on, and they believe in the same thing, then here you are. You become a team, and then it starts the technical part of it. All right. Well, I guess the last question I would just ask you, what kind of advice you give to your younger self or to another person who are on the way to their financial independence and are finding their why and looking for better themselves? What is it that they definitely need to do or think about? Any type of advice that can help our people who watch?
That's a great question. I feel like the vision board's always helpful, but I like to here's the big thing I found missing is you listen to the affirmations and you have your vision board and you write down your why, which is very, very important. All that's super important. You have to do it. There's a disconnect though between the people who read The Secret. Now, people who know me know that I appreciate the point of The Secret, and I believe in most of what the book and the movie teach, right? The one thing that's really missing is that you can't just think yourself to success. I'm a big systems guy, but I feel like you can't just wish for your dreams to happen. If you have a dream, you write down what your dream is, but what are the next steps? All right, you have a dream, you have a place where you want to be in 5 years. What does everything cost in that dream? So write down, everything has cocoa beans assigned to it. Cocoa beans is my other version for money, right? Cocoa beans are interchangeable. Money comes, money goes. How many cocoa beans is your dream going to cost? So you write it on a piece of paper, you put it in an Excel sheet, And now it spits out a number that you need to have in your bank account in 5 years. Great, you have a starting point. It's so easy at this point when you realize that real estate or fruit arrangements or education tutoring centers or whatever businesses you are involved with, it now just becomes a game. How do I hit this number? What do I have to adjust in my spreadsheets? What management do I have to put into place? What system do I have to work on or pay attention to? What person do I need? What talent do we need to put in to help all of us reach this number so that in 5 years my goal will be achieved? And if I can help all these people at the same time reach their own goals, I mean, that's key. You've made it.
Awesome, man.
Sorry, so you asked me, did I even answer that question? I'm drunk now, so I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. That's all right. Just kidding.
No, you answered, and I like your thoughts and how it's flowing, because basically you described the cone. This is your $1 million, or this is your why, this is your family. It could be anything on top of it, and you break it down. Okay, this is 4 years from now, 3 years from now, 2, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. Okay, every day, what do I do? How much money do I have to make today? How many people do I have to meet? In the week.
You nailed it. Nailed it. Thank you. That's what I was trying to say. You said it way better than me.
Echo. But Nick, it's been great having you today, because I think we've learned a lot. You shared personal and professional information. It really, creates a whole picture of who you are, and you have an amazing team. You have an amazing people around you, and I'm really happy that you shared all of that with us. And I'm gonna see you probably in a couple of weeks at a meetup. And,
we have one Monday. This is not going to air before this Monday, but this coming Monday at 5 to 7 p.m. we have one at our finished rehab in Chelmsford. Everybody wants to come.
But that's a repeat event, so you're probably gonna hear about that again.
Check us out, AA Real Estate Group, which is Facebook. Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, please share how people can find you and
Cool,
know
yeah.
more about it too.
Come we put all our events, usually Facebook's kind of a great medium for us. We're on Instagram, it's AA Real Estate Group and Complete Deal Flow on Instagram. Facebook is the AA Real Estate Group, AA Real Estate Group on Facebook. YouTube, we have our YouTube channel. It's AA Real Estate Props is our username on YouTube. We post a whole bunch of sales videos, inspirational videos, a lot of rehab walkthroughs. We have like our poop house. A lot of people love meth labs and poop houses. We put a lot of that stuff out there. Facebook's probably a really good way to reach us, though. And then you can always reach us if anyone wants to talk to us at info at aarealestategroup.com. Myself, Rob, and Lori, I'll share that. So if you say something really bad about me, don't send it to that email, because I'll probably read it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dorina, for coming up.
It's so nice to talk to you. Okay, I'll see you in a little bit.
You got it. Sounds like a plan.